Hello, welcome to the Positive Posting Conversation, the show about how to have a better relationship with your dog and cat. I'm Zazie Todd, author of the books Bark, Wag and Purr, and creator of companion animal psychology blog. My co-host, Christy Benson, is a dog trainer and anthropologist, and she also works at the Academy for Dog Trainers. We can't give advice on your pet, so if you have concerns, see your dog trainer, cat behaviourist, or veterinarian as appropriate. Thanks for joining us today. Dog sports sound like a lot of fun, but there are so many different ones. What exactly are they, and how can you get started? And which sport is best for you and your dog? We're going to get the answers today from Ayoka Bubar, who's an expert in dog sports. Welcome to the Positive Post in Conversation. I'm Zazie Todd. I'm joined, as always, by my friend and colleague, Christy Benson. Hey, Christy, I know you've done sled dog sports, but are there any other dog sports that you would like to try?
I think I'd like to try something that has to do with scent, like nose work or scent work or something like that.
Good choice. Fun. Okay, well, today we're joined by Ayoka Bubar. Ayoka is an approved judge for the Canadian Association of Rally Obedience, and she never passes up an opportunity to try a new sport with her Rottweilers. She has trained or trialed in flyball, agility, tracking, trick titling, herding, rally obedience, mondioing, IGP, and scent work. I hope I didn't miss any. So she's the perfect person to tell us about dog sports. As well, Ayoka believes that dog training should be fun for dogs and their humans, so we love to hear that. And she likes to use positive reinforcement techniques to help handlers communicate more effectively with their dogs. Welcome to the show, Ayoka.
Thank you so much for the invite.
So can you tell us, first of all, why do you love dog sports?
Oh, I could. I have so many reasons. I was thinking last night, why do I love? Primarily because it gives me an activity to do with my dogs. When I got my first dog, he was a very busy, very intelligent, get into trouble kind of dog. And I find sometimes when we're struggling with other behavior challenges, let's say, and they weren't huge with him, it was first time dog owner kind of stuff. Having a dog sport where you can have fun, it's relatively low pressure for some dog sports, bond with your dog, meet some new people that also love dogs. And I do enjoy the competition aspect of dog sports as well. I'm a competitive person. I've been competing in sports or music all my life until I got dogs. And that participation in competitive activities just sort of transferred right into dogs.
Awesome.
So I love how that's like how good dog sports are for people, which I think is something that we don't often think about the human aspect as dog trainers. We think about the dogs.
Yeah.
Why are dog sports good for dogs?
Yeah. I think dog sports are great for dogs because they encourage people to train their dogs, to spend time with their dogs, I've often heard vets say, dog sport people are the ones that pick up on any health issues with their dogs because they're spending so much time with them and observing them and get to know them so well that they know when something's wrong. So I think, dog sports build that human-animal bond, help build that human-animal bond. And I think dogs that are involved in dog sports are also likely to stay in their homes for their entire life. More likely to, because people are doing things with them and having fun with them and all that.
I love that. So they're more invested in their dog in some ways. I think that's really good to have.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and to have a joint activity to do with your dog that you love, I think it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many different dog sports. So for people who aren't familiar with them, let's talk about some specific ones and who they're good for and what people get from them. So let's start with rally obedience, which you are a judge for, and tricks training, and what they involve, which kind of dogs and people they're good for.
Okay, let's start with tricks. I'll do rally obedience second. Because tricks is, I call it, it's not really a sport because it's not competitive, but it is an activity and you can get titles with your dogs, which is a piece of paper and letters after your dog's name. Tricks is like a gateway to dog sports, I find. Because now AKC offers trick titles and Do More With Your Dog. The organization offers trick titles. And many of the tricks at the beginner level are simple things you can do with your dog. Sit, lie down, stand up, hand touch. So they're not always very complicated at the beginning, but they're also practical things. Heeling, walking on a loose leash is a trick. And I like the approach that everything we do with our dogs really is just a trick. We think about formal training and then we think about tricks as shake a paw or roll over. Those count too as tricks, but I think the approach that everything we do with our dog is a trick can release some of the pressure when we're working on maybe heavy duty, more behavior challenge. What else can I say about tricks? And it involves tricks is a video titling. There, AKC does in person. I guess they could be done in person if you have an evaluator nearby, but you can do video titling as well. So if you have a dog that is really scared of going into a big building with lots of dogs at a dog show to perform tricks, you can do it in your living room at home or in your backyard. So I love that it's accessible to lots of different types of dogs, also lots of different types of people, because, just even to think geographically, we don't all have access to dog shows or trick dog evaluators. So being able to do it in your home and send it away is a huge benefit. It makes it really accessible. Now, rally obedience. Now, who is tricks good for? I say any dog, any person. It's good for everybody. I have a puppy right now, and probably one of the first titles she will ever get will be a trick title, because we're working on little pieces of things. I think my girl who's gone now, Epic, had her novice trick title when she was 12 weeks old. So it's not super complicated or super difficult. If you're working on these things at the beginning level, you can use food rewards, and even no luring, but food rewards for sure. So tricks is it for anybody and any dog. There have been trick cats, trick gerbils, trick birds, trick horses. So any animal, I would say, even as long as you can train them, and most respond really well to positive reinforcement. So I would say all animals. Tricks is great for everybody, any dog. Rally obedience is a sport. I'll just describe it a little bit, where a dog and handler team navigate a course, and throughout the course there are at the beginning level 10 to 12 stations, and at each station you need to perform a specific behavior that's been selected ahead of time for you. And you do have the opportunity to walk the course without your dog to familiarize yourself. The exercises at each level are picked from a set list, but you don't know till the day of which ones they're going to pick. So there's a bit of a luck of the draw, as it were. And so dog and handler team navigate through that course together. Now, rally obedience also, quite a few organizations offer virtual trials as well as in-person trials. So I think, rally obedience is I call it my first dog sport love. Well, actually, maybe my first was fly ball, believe it or not. Um, my second love was rally obedience, and I love that it's not a fast sport like agility. Agility is zoom, 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 and you're done in a matter of seconds. Rally obedience is measured in a matter of minutes. So, you don't have a lot of time, but you do have enough time. You can go a little slower, makes it more accessible to different kinds of people with different disabilities. It's accessible to different kinds of dogs. Some organizations allow dogs with disabilities, like a tripod dog, or a blind dog. So I think rally obedience, I say any person, any dog, and I really do mean it, that it's accessible to quite a few people. And I've helped a few different teams with different challenges adapt to the sport in different ways. So I like rally obedience as a beginner friendly dog sport as well.
I love that. I love how it's both. I think that as dog trainers, giving our clients the ability to find joy with their dog too is so important. Like you can't be like, just do something that's going to be really a chore for you, So here's something that's good for your dog, and you'll get a lot of joy out of it too. I think that's really great.
Yeah.
The next two we were going to ask about is barn hunt and carting. So what do they involve, and who are they good for?
Barn hunt is relatively new to me, but we're having lots of fun in it. It involves dogs searching among bale stacked up in different patterns, searching for a live rat in a PVC tube. So the rats are safe from the dogs. And that tube is hidden amongst all the bales in a ring. So your dog has to go out into the ring, indicate the rat to you at the beginning level, and as you go, and indicate the rat to you, but not indicate a tube with just rat litter, so they're bedding in it, or an empty tube. So they really have to identify this is the rat, not the thing that smells like the rat, not the thing that holds a rat, but the actual rat in a tube. As you progress higher in levels, there's more rats and more tubes. So I I think it's just a fascinating dog sport. My girl, I've taught it to her as a scent work exercise. Some dogs are really into the hunting aspect of finding the rats and they get really excited about it. Or you'll see them, digging in the hay really excitedly, and some will bark when they find the rat. They're so excited. My girl is it's more of a scent work exercise for her. We always joke that she's in it for the hot dogs. But that's fine. She gets her hot dogs when she finds her rat. But it's a fascinating and really, really fun dog sport. Now, for dogs that any dog can do scent work, the challenge in barn hunt is they also need to be able to, and it's one of the requirements for passing a certain level, to climb the bale and like at least climb on top of a bale, and they need to go through a tunnel. So sometimes for teeny, teeny, tiny dogs, that's a really big challenge. And sometimes for really, really big dogs. So think of a Great Dane going through, I think it's an 18 or 19-inch, a bale on its side. Like a Great Dane going through that tunnel might be a really big challenge. So there are some dogs on the edges size-wise that it might not be ideal for, but they could still have fun in a barn hunt class, just finding rats and scenting. A lot of, I talk about competing in dog sports, but there's no reason we have to compete if we don't want to. We can train for these sports and have a really good time. What was the other dog sport? Barn? Oh, karting.
Karting, yeah.
Yeah. Also called drafting. Draft dog is teaching your dog to pull a cart, like a two-wheeled cart. I've done a little bit of this with my dogs. Generally, in the US, it's breed clubs that offer karting titles or karting as a sport. In Canada, the Canadian Kennel Club offers it, and it's an all breed sport. However, so theoretically, your miniature poodle could participate in karting, but they have to be able to pull 40 pounds safely on a wheeled cart. So it doesn't mean 40 pounds because it's on wheels, but they have to be able to make that cart move up and down hills and all around, and to be able to do it safely. So that certainly does exclude some of the smaller dogs. I won't say, all of the smaller dogs, because say a Staffy Bull Terrier might be as tall as a miniature poodle, but is a little heavier and a little more muscled and probably would have an easier time pulling a cart. And they need a cart that's appropriate to their size, of course. But yeah, it's an all breed program in Canada. So it's for quite a few dogs based on size.
And I love how you're thinking about the accessibility and who these things are suitable for as well. I think that's really nice. So, I mean, there's a whole load of different sports that we also could get into. There's so many to choose from. So if someone is just wanting to get started in dog sports, but they don't really know where to begin, what would you recommend to them?
I would recommend Tricks right off the bat, because Tricks, you can do that in your living room. You may be able to find Tricks class near you, but you can do that in your living room or your backyard. You can work on a lot of the trick skills are dog sport skills. So if you decide you want to check out something else later on, you may have some of the skills that you need to do other dog sports. And I also, there's like, before I was able to access rally obedience, because it was a newer sport when I had my first dog, obedience was what there was. So I did obedience. I really want to try rally because you're able to talk to your dog. It's less formal than traditional obedience, and it looks like a lot of fun. So, also look at what's available near you, and then I moved because my partner's in the military. So we moved, and we ended up moving to an area where rally obedience is a fairly large sport with lots of opportunities for training, trialing. So look at what's available to you locally or available to you online. I teach online rally obedience classes, and lots of my students are people that don't have a kennel club nearby to learn about dog sports. But rally obedience lends itself really well to online learning. Not every sport does. For example, barn hunt, unless you have your own rats, can be really hard to teach at home.
And your own hay bales. Imagine explaining that to your family.
Well, the hay bales are important if you're going to compete, but we actually did a class that was more with my girl Saga, we did a class that was more, they called it urban barn hunt. So they hid things in boxes, on chairs, in nooks and crannies in a room, almost like a scent detection exercise. So that's how we learned barn hunt. And we did have an opportunity to practice on bales 2 or 3 times before we went to a trial. But our indication and the searching and all of that held up without having to have a huge access, a long-term access to bales. So
Wow. That's
yeah,
cool.
bales are kind of secondary when you think about what the sport is.
I guess so. It's good because they are not cheap.
Well, depending on where you are, and it's straw bale, so they are cheaper than hay bale.
Hmm.
It is straw that's used, but yes, depending on where you are in the world, they can be less expensive, more expensive. Here in sort of central/western Canada, they're less expensive because we have lots of crops that are, we usually use wheat straw, and there's lots of wheat crops that are available. But if you're not in a big agricultural area, I can imagine that they would be, or if you're in a more isolated area, hard to find.
So you have mentioned a couple times different breeds as you're
Mhm.
talking about the different dog sports. So what role does a dog's breed play in the whole conversation about dog sports? Can any type of dog do
Um,
the sport? Are there some breeds that are more suited to particular sports? Does it matter at beginner? Is it more important as you advance? What's your thoughts?
I think that for what we call the companion dog sports, so the obedience, rally, I'm trying to think what else, agility, barn hunt, I would consider like a companion dog type sport. I don't think breed really does matter. I think in barn hunt, if you have a terrier that's really gamey, you probably do have an advantage. But maybe you don't have an advantage because they get to hunt, but they don't get to complete their hunt. They don't get to kill the rat. They just get to find the rat. So for some dogs, that's not as motivating to find the rat if someone just picks it up and takes it away once they find it. So that may not be an advantage if you have a really gamey dog. For agility, lots of people think you need a super fast, high drive dog. Well, you can compete in agility on the weekend near your home without that dog. There's lots of different shapes and sizes of dogs that compete in agility and in rally and in obedience. Some sports, I'm thinking of coursing, like the hound racing. Some of those sports are only open to hound breeds, like sight hound breeds. But we also have coursing ability and what is called fast cat in the United States. We call it sprinter here. And fast cat is like a one dog. How fast can you go for 100 meters? So they have pieces of that sport that are available to all breeds. Some of the gun dog stuff is only open to retriever breeds, but I'm trying to think what else might be outright breed specific. I can't think of very many. I haven't participated in very many. Some herding in the United States with the American Kennel Club is only open. Competitions are only open to herding what they determine to be herding breeds, or breeds with a history of herding, not just dogs from the herding group. But in Canada, it's an all breed program. If the dog can do the work and do it nicely and treat the sheep well, then it's open to um, all breeds. So breed probably plays a role, but maybe not as much of a role as you might think. Just because you don't have a border collie doesn't mean you can't do agility. Just because you don't have Parson Russell Terrier doesn't mean you can't do barn hunt. Just because you have a Chihuahua doesn't mean you can't do fast cat. Um, a lot of these sports have different levels of participation, and I really like that because it means more people can participate. There's people that are participating to get a leg towards a title. There's people that are participating to collect qualifications to a national invitational so they can try out for a world team. And you can have the same people at the same time.
Excellent. And then some people are probably listening and thinking, but my dog is reactive or my dog is fearful. And this is actually a question I put to you when I was writing Bark. So people could go and read what you said about this in Bark as well,
Yeah.
because you gave me some excellent advice then. But for people listening now, if someone has a reactive or fearful dog, which sports would you recommend to them? And sometimes it might be actually good for the dog to take part, mightn't it?
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but hey, tricks. Um, tricks is really easy if you have a fearful or reactive dog. I find scent work tends to be more friendly to fearful or reactive dogs. The hardest part, in my opinion, of say a rally obedience trial is that part of trialing where you're waiting to go in the ring and you may have 5 or 6 dogs cramped into one area trying to get in. That's probably one of the more difficult parts if you have a fearful or reactive dog. But scent work doesn't tend to have that happen as frequently. And I don't know if it's because it takes a little bit longer. So we don't have, an agility in the next 5 minutes, you can have 6 dogs. Um, and in 5 minutes in say scent work, you might have 1 or 2 dogs. So you don't have that congestion, I guess, around the entrances to areas. Carding can be, depending on the organization, great. Some organizations require group sits and downs. Some of them are on leash, some of them are off leash. Depending on the organization, can be really nice for fearful or reactive dogs. Herding actually is a great sport. And I also teach herding for fearful or reactive dogs because it is one dog at a time in the arena. Not as much congestion because a run can take up to 10 minutes. But start with tricks, and tricks are really, especially if you're working with a dog with a lot of behavioral challenges, tricks is a nice way to build some skills in a low pressure because fear and reactivity are such, in my opinion, and my experience with a reactive dog, they're such high pressure training scenarios. You have this dog that's reactive and you want to change their behavior so that you can do something as simple as go for a walk, or you could do something as simple as get to the vet safely, or those kinds of things. But tricks, if something goes wrong while you're teaching a trick, it's not the end of the world. No one gets hurt. No one is traumatized. You can laugh it off. So I like starting. I recommend to people to start with tricks and to go from there.
Great.
I love that. Keeps making me think about one of our colleagues, Erica, that teaches trick classes, and I've done a couple of trick classes with her, and they're so gratifying, so much fun.
Yes, yeah, they are, and it's fun. And it's
good,
yeah, yeah,
and it really makes you appreciate your dog too somehow.
Yep, absolutely. Because some tricks are incredibly like I have Rottweilers, and they're good at retrieving, but not always good at giving the item up at the end. They're a little bit possessive, if I was to use a word to describe them, anthropomorphize a bit. They'll bring it back, but they want to show it to you and keep it in the fence. So some of those retrieving tricks are a really big challenge for us at the beginning levels and at the more advanced levels. So, but I have had students and I've had friends, they can teach. I have a friend with bulldogs that has a trick dog championship, and retrieving has to be one of the elements for a trick dog championship. So, really great trainers, lots of cool dogs and great skills and tricks. Yeah, they just make you smile.
They totally do. Well, as a dog trainer too, I think it helps you sort of poke around the edges of where do you need work with your mechanic.
Yes, absolutely.
It helps you so much. Like I did
Yeah.
a trick dog title through PPG with one of my older sled dogs, and I thought, beginner tricks, this is going to be a breeze for me and her. And I picked the old dog because I wanted to be like, look, I'm so capable. I can do it on an old dog. And I struggled. Like it was like you had to something along the lines of you had to ask her to sit in 5 different ways, like once with your arms up, once facing.
Okay.
And I had to retrain sit every single time. And I'm like, I mean, I knew this theoretically would happen, but the fact that it is actually happening.
It's a wonderful way to build skills and see where the goals are in your training. And it's a low pressure way to do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Just completely fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were a judge for rally. And it sounds like that's kind of a special, holds a special place in your heart. But you've actually done lots of different dog sports, which you've talked about already a little bit, using positive reinforcement. So what do you think you've learned from each of these different sports?
Well, the main thing that I've learned is that they're all different sports, but a lot of the foundation is very similar. So what I find with my dogs, I start my dogs in it's a sport, conformation, which is what I jokingly refer to as the beauty pageant for dogs. When we think of Westminster Kennel Club, everyone can sort of picture that in their mind. So that on a smaller level, Westminster Kennel Club is a conformation show, well, one of the biggest, of course, and more prestigious. But I start in conformation, and a lot of the skills that I teach my dogs for conformation are actually transferable to rally. And some of the skills in rally obedience are transferable to herding or to scent work. Scent work is transferable to barn hunt. Some of the agility aspects, and I haven't done agility for a while, but some of those are transferable to barn hunt as well when you think of climbing and tunnels and using your body in different ways. So it's not like if you do conformation and then want to do rally obedience later on that you have to start from scratch. That a lot of the foundations in performing in a ring with or without reinforcement and learning some of those skills is all quite similar when you distill it down to the basics, which I think is fascinating.
Totally. And I know that dog training world, like any collaboration or collective of humans, can have pockets of, places where it's a little bit tougher to be as a human and places where it's a little bit more gentle to be as a human. So what kind of community do you think people will find in the dog sports world?
I think the first place that you'll find good community will be if you have the opportunity to take class, whether it's in person or online. You'll find good community in people that are learning along with you and having the same challenges and the same kinds and celebrating the same kinds of success. You're an instructor, and when you go out into the competing world, there'll be other competitors. For me, I found a lot of community amongst people in my breed. So, versatile Rottweilers doing a whole bunch of different things. I've developed lots of great relationships with other Rottweiler owners and Rottweiler breeders that way. And in some sports, some sports make a really big effort, or at least has been my experience, to welcome new people and, tell them that if their run's been successful, to congratulate them and say, what a cool dog, or that kind of thing. So there is that opportunity, and you're all there having the same experience at the same time. And you're all subject to the same, more or less, depending on what level you're in, to the same rules. It could go really well for you or not, depending on the day. So I think the place where I found the most community actually has been in herding. And I think it's because in that sport, we're working with another species, with sheep or ducks or geese or cattle. And that species has their own agenda. So when we're trying to move those animals through a course, sometimes they decide they don't want to do that. And herding is very humbling that way, because it's not that you could have trained harder. It's not that you need a different dog. It's just that the luck of the draw and the way the animals worked that day just didn't work out for you. So I find the community is stronger there, because we really do realize we're all sort of having the same experience at the same time.
I love how encouraging all of this is. I feel like, anyone listening to you will immediately want to go away and find some kind of sports class near them that they will want to go and try with their dog.
I
It's
hope
really,
so.
yeah, it's clearly so much fun in lots of different ways. So I think that's really nice. Yeah. And so at the end of our interviews, we ask everyone for a book recommendation. So we would like to know what you have been reading or listening to recently that you would recommend to us.
I have been actually, I don't know if we can, no, it's not going to let us see it. I have been rereading Atomic Habits. I don't know if that's one that has come up in the past. And it's about building habits to improve your life, whatever that means to you specifically. And every time I listen to it, I don't spend a lot of time reading paper books. I spend more time listening to audiobooks as I do things. But it's a book that I have pulled out different things just about every time that I read it. So it's sort of evergreen in that way. But in my dog sport life, it has really helped me look at, determine what is success for me, what do I want to do in dog training, how can I reach goals without necessarily relying on willpower, because we all only have finite amounts of willpower? And how can I set up systems instead of relying on willpower? So systems to help me move forward or progress in the ways that I to. So it's one that I'm not a huge self-help / productivity reader, but this one was recommended to me by another doctor, and it's been really helpful.
Oh, so it hasn't been recommended on this podcast before, I don't think, but I've heard a lot of people talk about this book. So it's good to get a recommendation from a dog trainer and to hear that you got that recommendation from a dog trainer too. So
And it was published quite a while ago. I was just looking in 2018. So, but it's still going. It says it's one of the most downloaded books on all. So,
wow,
I
awesome.
guess being popular doesn't mean everyone will like it, but it is one that I have really enjoyed.
Good, good. Well, thank you so much for coming to talk about dog sports with us.
Very
If
well.
anyone wants to know more about you, where should they go?
They can go to my website, which is ayokabubar.com, AYOKABUBAR.com. They can also find me on Instagram at TheOG Rotten Dog, TheOGROTTENDOG. And then they can find me on Facebook under Ayoka.
Awesome. And I'll put those links in the show notes. So thank you so much for talking to us today. And thank you to everyone who's been listening. I'm sure you'll agree this has been a fabulous interview. So please go and tell a friend about it so that they also can learn more about dog sports. Thank you. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Positive Posting Conversation. If you liked this episode, please subscribe to the show and write us a review via your podcast app. For the show notes, visit companionanimalpsychology.com. This show was produced by Zazie Todd. The music is Melody from Paris by Studio Le Bousse. See you next time.